Welcome to the Enriched Wealth Podcast. This week, we're going to be talking to Chris Harrington, Managing Partner of Strategem. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
No worries. Thanks, Chris.
Great to have you on. And two Chris's don't make a right, but hopefully today we can find some good things to talk about. Would love, Chris, to start talking about your journey at Strategem, how you sort of started, how long you've been there for, what drew you to become an accountant, and sort of that journey now into sort of leading the organisation as managing partner.
No worries. Thanks, Chris. Chris with a K, Chris with a C, just in case you get mixed up. So it's interesting when you look back on your life and you say, why did I become an accountant? It was one of those things where as a young kid, I could add up numbers in my head, which everyone said, you'll be an accountant. Which,
there you go.
When I look now, 30 years later, I say adding up numbers in your head is still a worthwhile practice, but what we actually do in public accounting isn't just numbers. And that's actually the thing that I'm so glad happened, because you build that understanding of relationships, and what you're really there to do is absolutely get the numbers right, but build that trust with the client and have them come in, because we're dealing with their finances a lot of times, and also with some complex rules, and that there's actually that trust in you being able to deliver what you need to do for them, so that they can walk away knowing that they're in the best position they can be financially. And that's, I suppose that doesn't come when you first start accounting and when I was a 12-year-old kid, but that's sort of what started the process. You get to year 12, I did have a bent towards law and accounting at the time, and thought I'll go down the accounting line, and certainly enjoyed it. And there is something inside every accountant that actually just likes getting the answer right, and I do have that, even though that's not what drives me and gets me up in the morning. But there is, it's nice to go, that works out, and that's just part of the personality, I think, in the background that sort of leads you down that track at the start. And actually studied locally, sort of enjoyed
at La
Trobe Uni, and it certainly enjoyed that Bendigo aspect of my life. Never really went anywhere else. Had very strong family connections to business of all kinds.
So you sort of grew up with exposure to business even before you went down the accounting line.
Absolutely.
It was something that was within the family. This is part of what we do. Dad
had a business. Mum's family had businesses as well in Mildura. My uncles all had their own businesses. It was just the way we think. And if I look at my client base now, there's quite a few HARRs, which is sort of the Harrington, the start of that. Just with virtually, all my family have had virtually had a business interest in some way, shape, or form, and it is understanding that. You see how your family operates and what it takes to run a business, and it sort of just gets built in. So without really meaning to head that way, you just found your way there. And I remember my uncle once saying to me, we need a good bean counter in the family. So hopefully I've lived up to that expectation over the time.
No pressure or anything.
No, not really.
But I think that's a great sort of formative thing for you to it's just part of what you do. And I think for any parents out there wondering what to expose your kids to, sport's great, but if you can expose them to business or get them to do some work experience and all those things, I think that helps people get a bit of a rounded view on how the world works and how business works, because business is what makes the world go around, and we're all going to need a job one day. And I think it just having that exposure, I think would have been great in terms of just your understanding of the mechanics of this is how it works, and also what it actually, as you said, takes to make something successful. It just doesn't happen by chance most of the time.
I certainly agree. I look at even just the holidays during uni time when I'd head up north and pick grapes or oranges, but get involved with the other people doing that on what was a family farm, and actually understanding work ethic, and looking at sort of my grandma at the time, who would pick 2 buckets to my 1, but just understanding what it was, and then I'd watch her go and cook lunch for everyone, and then at the end of the day, put together the pays on the Thursday for everyone as well. Yes. So that whole aspect of what it takes to operate a business was it just our way of life to a lot of it, and Dad being involved at an ownership level and with the different businesses he did, and same thing, you got a good look at what labouring was and what trades were, and would that have suited me? My hands are a bit soft, I think, for that.
I think you did try. Remember telling me a story about trying some concreting at one stage?
Yeah, there might have been. I might have turned up to my first job interview with black hands. The main reason was that no one told me to put gloves on when I had to make the concrete black, and so black hands for like a week and a half, and the other guys I was working with loved it, that the stupid student had no idea what he was actually doing. At the same time, really good grounding.
Yes.
So that when you do look at businesses now, you do know what it is when they get up in the morning, what they're doing, and then and
what it takes.
Correct. And the fact that when we do that paperwork aspect of it, I can understand those guys are tired, or families, I'll say, are pretty tired and run down, and then you've got to do the books. So as much as we can do to make that job easier for them, I think works out well for them.
And I think that's one of the things we can forget sometimes as well, is we do all the paperwork, the numbers side, but that's only a small element sometimes of these businesses for these people. If they're running around looking after customers, if they're on the tools and different things like that, the paperwork's almost an afterthought sometimes, where it's kind of our world and we're trying to help them make it work. But for a lot of people, it isn't always front and centre in their mind as well too. So
absolutely,
being able to be that support is, I think, really crucial for them. So
knowing that there's a whole lot of ingredients that goes to actually operating a successful business.
Yes.
And being exposed to from the ground level, right up to the higher level of making strategic decisions.
Yep.
All that kind of stuff. There's an element you get by being exposed to watching people act within a small business.
Yep. So we talk a bit more about your journey at Strategem. When did you become partner?
So I originally went to the celebration drinks of Trevor Elliott leaving Strategem.
Right. Just as a reference, he left and came back. He's still here.
Trevor saw the bright lights of Melbourne, and he decided he wanted to head to work in Melbourne.
Yep.
And I just went along as an acquaintance of his. I won't say I didn't grow up with him. He wasn't my best friend or anything, but I knew him pretty well, and I knew he worked just down the road. So I went up and sat at the Rifle Brigade. He said, "You should apply for my job." And I said, "I'm quite happy where I am." Anyway, well, Johnny Lebridge gives me a call, and I think, John's a family friend. So he said, "Come down and just meet us. Come on. If anyone knows John Lebridge, I'm sure you'll understand that you can't say no to him." So down I went, had an interview, and thought, I reckon this might be a good thing. So tossed and turned for a couple of weeks, and then made the move and joined Ashman, Ralph and Associates back in the late 90s.
Yep.
And it was fortuitous. It's just the way the world runs sometimes. And I always think, your decisions are half luck as much as half good management. Yep. And that was a great decision that I made at the time. But
I think too, half luck, but you explored the opportunity. And I think that's part of it. Sometimes is when opportunities present themselves, maybe walk down the road a little bit. You don't always have to go, but if you had have just knocked it on the head at the start, who knows where it would have gone. Yeah. So sometimes it is just knocking on the door and seeing what's on the other side. So.
No, very true. And so then I went sort of changed jobs, which I found very difficult to do. I will say there's an element of the people that give you your first chance in employment in your chosen profession. It's difficult to make that call to move on.
Yes.
And
how long had you been at the other firm for?
5.5, 6 years.
Okay, so a good amount of time. Yeah, like it wasn't just you got out of uni, moved around a couple of jobs, and here you are. You sort of cemented some relationships.
Correct.
Spent a bit of time with clients, and
there was that. There's a difference in the way I thought about my career at that time of my life when I moved to Ashman Ralph and Associates as it was compared to probably earlier.
Right.
There was a bit more older and wiser and could see opportunity, I suppose, which you're never quite sure. And then sort of 5 or 6 years later, started to get in some reasonable discussions. And 1st of July 2004, was offered partnership and took it.
Awesome. Very good. And so then obviously from there, seeing clients, building a client base, working with a whole range of businesses over those last 20 years through your journey there. And you've probably seen the firm grow and change over that time as well too. And then what would have been, 21, I think it was, managing partner? You stepped into that role?
Yeah.
Yep.
End of 21 and 22, which... It wasn't a desire of mine to be managing partner. I think
the reluctant leader.
It was time in some respects. I'd spent most of my time very client focused, certainly in the early parts of my partnership, and getting involved when I needed to at a management level, but never really having that much formal roles apart from the hallway conversations and obviously at partner meetings when there's decisions to be made.
Yep.
But actually taking that step into the managing partner role was it was challenging to me, but it was also rewarding. It's been rewarding. And there's an element of ensuring that at the end of the day, our clients are paramount to what we do. But at the same time, so is our staff and so is my fellow partners. So actually having that little bit more influence in those areas has been refreshing and very enjoyable as well.
Yep.
As much as it takes a bit of time, but anyway.
And you've taken on a few projects. I mean, we've had a renovation in that time. There's been IT stuff that we've been changing over in that as well too. So you've been part of quite a bit of a change in that period as well too, not just keeping the ship afloat. So
correct. Been interesting. We've had I think we're in a good space at the moment. We've sort of developed our physical building for the long term, and thanks very much to our landlords. They certainly helped out in that area as well. I think it's given us a bit more focus too on our internal people, and I think they've certainly enjoyed the fact that we have certainly a terrific place to work. And then the IT part of things. I can't say that I'm an expert in that area at all, but we have to use it every single day, and I've learned a lot of things, and I keep saying to the IT guys, 101, you're starting at 102 and you're starting in the wrong place. So keep pulling it back to 101 and explain to me why we need to do that and how we do that.
Yep.
And even now with our change in client data management, that'll be a big change. That's sort of right afoot right now, and it'll be a terrific thing. And I know the younger people grab hold of this stuff a lot easier than us slightly older people, even though I think I'm pretty young still, but anyway.
Well, I think you do all right taking on change, so yeah.
But it's challenging, but it's also rewarding, and we know, hey, think of it as how this is going to be better for you. And it's coming and it's working so far. So good.
So what would be, if you reflect over, and it probably feels like 10 seconds the last 4 years, I know for me it's felt, the last few years have just flown by, but if you reflect over those couple of years, what's one of the takeaways that you've sort of learnt from your leadership in that period of time?
I think everyone, you need to work with your people. You need to have them understand what you're trying to do, but also they've got jewels in their minds that you need to try and find and get out.
Yes.
Ask the questions, and then you have to decipher some of that sometimes. But I really think that the people part of it. There's no business in any business anywhere without the people.
Yes.
And as we move into a different world in some respects, I still think there's a people element to everything we do.
Yes.
And you never want to lose that.
No.
And that's the thing we really try and focus on, and I keep pulling it back that yes, this is physical and that's a nice looking building, but I want people to walk into the office saying, I'm looking forward to today. Getting out of bed, thinking, today's a work day. That's good.
Yep.
And I think with that aspect in mind, I think everyone performs their best.
Yep. And I think looking at, we're a service-based business, but if you've got staff who are happy to come to work and you've got clients who want to come and see you, I think you're doing the right things.
Yep.
And you're ticking the right boxes. So,
agreed.
Yep.
Yeah. And we never want to lose sight of that, the fact that, we are not much without our people from all different areas.
Yes. Yep. No, that's excellent. And you've had a bit to do with the Community Foundation as well over the last little while. There's been it's probably been a bit quieter since COVID. It's probably been a bit hard to do some things, but there's been a bit over the last few years in terms of support to businesses and things like that as well too that we've done over that period of time.
Yeah, the Community Foundation's a thing that I'm personally proud of, but also as a business we're proud of. It was I'm going to say it's a bit over 10 or 12 years old now.
Yep.
And the main aim of it is that, I think we live in a privilege, maybe not the word, but we're in a position where we can help others. So we want to make sure that we do actually, spread the love where we can. And as you say, COVID certainly put some of that to the back of the queue, which is a bit unfortunate, but we're certainly in the next year or two, with some of the other partners being more involved, looking to push that Community Foundation to the forefront again, and also really create something that will be, hopefully very much changing to our immediate community, but also the wider community that Strategem operate in.
Yeah, and I think that's excellent. That's really good, and thank you for some of those reflections, because I know it can be very easy to get lost in the business sometimes on different areas, and so to be able to have that opportunity to helicopter up and see, our size business at the level you have, obviously it helps create perspective and experience that you can help with clients as well.
I don't want to. No. I reckon when I'm. If I ever retire. No, I'm sure I'm going. My darling wife. But you could write a book. It is so interesting with having people being in your life of all different employees, community people you deal with, and clients. There is just so many unusual and fascinating, I'll call it, things that happen during your time.
Yep. And things that you couldn't predict if you had all of the options there and thought, well, that's the outcome.
Correct. And if you could blow the gaff on, confidentiality, it'd be. It is. What goes through and comes out and the things we deal with, it is fascinating. I just look back and I think, really lucky actually to be in that position sometimes when people do share things with you that are quite privileged.
Yep.
And if you think accounting in the public space is boring, I'd say if I could tell you so many stories that no, it is not boring.
I think for me that I look forward to some days just doing the numbers, because I'm like, you know what, that today I just need a bit of a quieter day, because the numbers are probably the least dramatic part of it.
I think you're definitely right.
Everything else is anyway. It's good fun, but there's always something to solve. So on that, we were talking beforehand just on what we're going to talk about today, because there's so many aspects that we could talk about with business and accounting, and one of the areas and spaces you've been involved in is succession planning, and I think it's something that all businesses should be thinking about. And you might be thinking it's 20 years off or it's 5 years off, but succession planning for the end is so crucial in terms of what you do. And I'd love to talk a bit about when we set up new businesses, we're actually thinking about structures and how to get out of them at some stage as well too, not from this is a poor choice, but we want to if we exit this at some point, we want to be able to do that well and in a tax effective manner. So we'd love to start talking a little bit about what we do from the start with clients, and then sort of talk about what we go through when we're looking at succession with clients, and get onto a few other topics. So, but love to start at the start.
Absolutely, I think a wise man early in my career once said, have this focus when you're speaking with your clients when they first come to you. They've got to have a plan about what the end looks like.
Yes.
So don't get into anything without understanding or having a bit of a plan on what how you're going to get out of it. Because at some point in time, there's going to be a need to, sell, move on,
hand over the reins.
Correct.
Yep.
All those things are so important, which leads to the very foundation is that structuring part of things to say, well, even though right now you may not be in a relationship and you may not be in a position to take advantage of flexibility within, say, a trust environment.
Yep.
Depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it, being a trust right now might still be the best thing, particularly if some things change moving forward. And crystal balls, we'd all love one of those, but you do need to have that flexibility. You do have the mind and explain it to your clients, hopefully in a nice, clear, concise manner, to say, hey, this is the reason why we would suggest you probably head down this track with the establishment of the business, and then with the eye to the future to say, this is how you can manage it best on the way out.
Yes. And I think too, sometimes people come with a great idea of what they're going to do for a business and they don't realise how big it could get, or if things go south, what do we do to protect ourselves or make sure things are done? And so that structuring and getting that right at the start, I think, is really important from how does the end look, and is this going to blow up and impact more than we thought, or is it something that we can get out of with a bit more ease?
I think a classic there is that people say, but if I've run a business and I've made debts, I don't want to leave those debts behind.
Yep.
But I have seen on a number of occasions where it is purely not your fault that you've got to this position.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily a decision you've made, but if a decision is made down the track that then from someone else that flows to you and you're left, I'll call it holding the baby.
Yes.
It is actually, that's when, the appropriate structure is allows you to make a decision on being able to live and breathe tomorrow, essentially, in a financial sense.
Yep.
And that's pretty important that people do understand that, because sometimes it's not their immediate or their decision or their choice at some point that actually does impact their position. And that's where you just want to have that scenario, which we hope no one gets to, but I do know it does happen, that you're in a position to actually, live to fight another day, and again, in a financial sense, based on the fact that you are structured correctly.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big thing. And people don't always think about the personal impact of the business or what it does down the line if there's issues and things like that as well too. If we think about succession planning, so someone's set up a business, it's running well, and they're thinking about, well, I've got 5 years left or something like that. What are some of the things they should be thinking about in terms of succession planning? And obviously, planning is not the same as doing. So you can set up a plan and that can change. So it's not about saying, I've written this in concrete now and I can't change what I've done. But it's about making sure that we've got, hopefully, thinking through some of the issues that might be there. So what are some of those issues that you see clients need to be thinking about as they're thinking about the end?
I think a big part is that, a lot of people say my business is my superannuation, for example. Depending on where the world is moving in your particular business, industry or aspect, can you sell it? That is a question. Is it actually you're selling, or you can't actually say to yourself?
Yes.
In business, that is. But so you have to really think your way through. What am I doing now that's going to allow someone else to come in and actually take my place and operate the business, and it be worth something for them to do that, versus I do everything. This business runs purely on my back. Therefore, when I'm not there, is there actually a business there? Yes. And just understanding what are the processes and procedures I've got. Can I go away on holidays and not have to answer the phone 16 times a day?
And I think we talked about that as a bit of a litmus test. If you can go away for a month and everything's still running when you get back,
correct,
it's a business. If it's all falling apart, then there's probably a few dependencies that you need to look at and go, well, can we shift some of this to either other people or get personnel involved that can help take some of that load?
I agree. It really is making yourself as least dependent as you can moving forward. There's always an element of it is your business, and unless a person is, has written the check and is involved financially or emotionally in the business, they probably don't have the same aspect. But can you actually, can someone just walk in and take over the business the way you are, and operate it and make the money and that you're making with your business at that time, which then gives something to sell. And there's also physical assets to it, so you could possibly sell a business and just sell the physical assets, but you're probably not getting the greatest value if that's all you're going to do.
And so the difference between those two values is goodwill. Is that what it is? And so goodwill is basically the ability for the business to function without the key person, isn't it?
It's the fact that the people will walk in the door tomorrow if you're not there.
Yes.
And they'll still say, I know Strategem, and I will still go to Strategem because I know what they do, and it doesn't really matter who the person is on the other side of the desk. It actually, I know what they can do for me.
Yep. And so that goodwill probably comes in a few different forms, but it's really, if you think about it, McDonald's, we don't know who operates any of those kind of things. You don't even know who the franchisee owner is. It's just McDonald's. You drive through the drive-through, or walk in and you get served and you walk away and you know what to expect. And it's the same for any other business if they don't have those elements to them, and it's I only come because I see Chris Harrington, then there's a lot of dependence on the person, not on the business as a brand and more than just what it is there.
Yeah, totally agree. And with that, the succession aspect as well, you need to, as you're going along, if the right person is near you and key employees, do what you need to do to keep them satisfied and keep them really enjoying their work, because they are part of your goodwill as well. Yes. So they're the ones that can certainly help with whether it's manufacture or service, whatever it might be. Yep. But they are the people that allow the business to operate the way it should. So have that in the back of your mind that they're key to the success of the business moving forward.
Yep.
And it is, as we said before, the plan of how you think you're going to either exit your business, sell your business, hand your business on. Yep. It changes so much. Yes. So you never want to be totally set in stone on it. You always want to think it through, understand what is the best option now. Yep. And it was very interesting. I was just in an office 1 hour ago, sitting in it was succession planning meeting
discussion,
which is very different. This is a second generation person, very different to how he took over his father's business 20 years ago, and it's a different world, and there's different scenarios for them to think through, and it's understanding, and it's a bit of a pivot. I think there was an element of saying, "Oh, this will be in the family forever." It still might be to a degree, but it's probably not going to be day-to-day operated by the family moving forward. Yep. Which has certainly been a good process to go through. Still a long way to go, but just the mindset of the shareholder driving the scenario, the business owner driving the scenario, and how they've been able to pivot intelligently, really, to think, well, I always thought it might be like that, but it's not going to be that now. It's going to be this, and this is the best way for us to let this business succeed moving forward.
Yep, and I think that's one of the things is having an open mind, because you might miss out on opportunities if you go, well, we're only going that way, because you will close all the other doors along the way, rather than actually saying, oh, actually, it could be this staff member. It might not be that son who's never been interested in the business, but I'm just going to hand the keys to him anyway. Yep. There might be other opportunities. And if we talk about the ways we can, if I can say it nicely, get out of a business or pass a business along, there's a few different ways we can do that, isn't there? It's not just family member or sell. There's a whole range of different ways that we can exit a business, isn't there?
Absolutely. So, there's a number of different ways, and it does sometimes depend exactly on what type of business it is.
Yes.
And as we sort of said at the start, sometimes the business isn't saleable, but you still want it to continue. The word succession, I mean, the key to it is the word succeed, right?
Yes.
So you want the business to succeed. So you want someone else to come in and continue for it to go well. And that may mean that you don't get any money for it, but you still see the business move on with someone else with the reins. So you like I say, you got to think that through and work out, well, whilst I'm going along then, I need to make sure that at the end game may be that there's not a big payday, but I need to make sure that I've set myself up so I've got the assets to the side that will allow me to live the way I want to live once I've left the business.
Yep.
And sometimes it is just closing the business. It might very well be that that's the best succession plan moving forward.
Which, if we look at retirement for someone, that could be an impact on retirement, because what they thought was their super may not actually be their super if they've got to close the doors and they've got no one to pass it on to. So,
and that's the 5-10 year planning scenario to sit down and say, well, can the business be sold? All right, let's not rely on X amount of dollars at the end of this.
Yes.
Let's start to build those dollars now.
And I think one of the things, and I'm probably jumping forward a little bit here, around all of that too, is as part of that planning is, and you've done a fair bit of work in this space, so I want to pick your brain on it, but doing a business valuation as well and actually understanding where you sit right now, because I've heard different people over the years, they believe their business is worth X or they'll be able to get Y for their business, but when we do the valuation, for whatever reason, the goodwill might not be there as much as we thought, or the assets aren't actually as worth as much. Just because we paid X for this doesn't mean it's worth that now. So valuations is key, and you've actually gone through that process quite a few times, haven't you?
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
And it is key, and there's always an element of opinion in valuation, there's no doubt about it, and it really just gets to the opinion of a person that's going to buy this business. What can they see as the return on their investment? Yep. So you need to have an eye for, what do I see as my return on investment in what I'm actually doing, and how am I doing it every single day? So how much
am I actually getting paid for the effort I'm putting in?
Correct. You see some people buy a business which essentially they buy a job. In other words, they buy their own hours, if you want to call it that.
Which is fine. But
absolutely.
It's understanding what you're getting into, isn't it?
Correct. And it's the end game. What that means that the next person comes along is just buying a job. So it's not like we're giving them I don't have a great big pot of gold here at the end of this.
Yes.
At the same time, though, by stopping and looking at the processes and procedures and the operations of the business, you can start to transition some of that to other people, so that it doesn't really matter who sits in those seats. They can actually, all they've got to do is follow the formula, and then you've got something worth selling.
Yep.
And often that's where you need to peel it back and plan out for that longer term strategy of me not being, or the business not being so dependent on me.
Yep.
And look,
I think when we talk about the business not being as dependent, it's not removing the value of that person from the business, but saying what we want is for you to be able to dictate more of the success of the business moving forward. So if you're able to pull yourself out of some of the day-to-day, you have the ability to, and the time to be able to grow and take it to the next level as well too. So it might actually be the best thing for the business to actually plan around some of this stuff and say, if I can take myself out of this and that, imagine what else I can do.
Yep. Absolutely. And, in valuation of businesses, you look historically at the figures to work out, can that be replicated?
So how far do you go back when you're looking at figures?
I mean, I think sometimes you can go back a long way. If you've got a historically very strong business and you can show figures that over, I'll say, a 20-year period, have grown with, there's a profit level and it has grown steadily over a long period of time. You can say, well, this business is well put together. This business continues to grow. This business charges correctly. This business has the right resourcing as well. So
that time factor is also a bit of a litmus test, isn't it? Because it's really sort of saying, over a long period, we've continued to deliver and be successful, and we've got people coming through the door that are happy with what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when in saying that, it's a really good history lesson, but you normally just look at the last 3 to 5 years on what you are going to buy here and now, I suppose. So even though those that history certainly helps in just proving to say, hey, we haven't just, our business just hasn't...
We haven't just popped up yesterday and
gone
we
mad.
Might be gone.
Really good economic conditions over the last 2 or 3 years, and look at where we're at. We're actually look at us over a long period of time. There was differences in the way the economy was running, but our business still held its own and did very well. So, they're the kind of things you need to look at. The other thing is, what is the market value of your assets within that business?
How much is that truck actually worth?
Correct.
Yep.
And how many of those trucks do we need? And can you just go and buy one of those trucks and get the finance to do it?
And I think too, what's the life cycle of some of those assets as well? Because if it's been in the business for 15 years and it needs to be replaced, well, it's probably worth nothing, and it could almost be a liability because it's actually a cost that's going to come up to the business that hasn't been there for the last 15 years.
Exactly right. So it's looking in and seeing what assets you actually need within your business to operate it, and then what resource, as a human resource, do we need to operate the business as well, and how dependent is that on the owner, and honestly, you need to look and say, well, whatever our profit is, we need to take, the owner should get a correct commensurate salary for that comes off the profit, because that's the owner turning up every day to do the work.
Yes.
So the owner's
really,
not there,
really what you're saying is, how much is this worth if the owner wasn't working the business?
Correct.
If you could fully staff and manage it, and you were never there and just a silent shareholder, that's when you can sort of get a better idea of what profit would be coming out of the business, and essentially what value is then attributable to that.
Yeah, and look, it does depend sometimes on who the purchaser is, because if the purchaser is a bigger entity coming in to grow its market share, it might operate on a different mindset on what return on equity it wants compared to, this is a mum and dad business, mum and dad are coming to buy it off them. They would think differently than someone that might come in from a corporate point of view, possibly a listed company coming into, when they come to buy it with a different mindset. And it might just be a geographical location for them, and it might be, we don't need X, Y, and Z, we just need this, so we're buying the ability to put our brand on the front door and do what we do in another space. That's right.
Yep.
And so it does depend on who is coming to the table to buy the business.
Which can also then impact, obviously, current employees that might be sitting in the business as well too, mightn't it, depending on what the exit looks like as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, and thinking through all of those impacts as well.
I mean, and again, if it was a bigger business coming in, just been through due diligence processes before where a bigger business has acquired I'll call it a micro/mum and dad business.
Yep.
It's the way they think compared to the way mum and dad think. Like our employment contracts are one page. Our policies and procedures are mostly in people's heads, but there's a little bit written down.
Yep.
Our OH&S requirements, we meet them, but there's a little bit of work to be done on those spaces. Yes. They're the kind of things that a bigger business would come in and say, we need to know about this, and this, and to take the business on and move it forward. And that's where it might cost a bit extra during that process to actually get the best value for money at the end of the transaction.
So I would say it's actually a really good process to go through that valuation and that thinking. Even if it's a day, a year, or something like that, what would we actually? What's the business worth? What would we need to? What would we actually get for it if we sold it today? What are the changes that we want to make over the next couple of years to obviously really impact what that valuation could look like, and potentially what we could sell it for at the end of the day? Yeah. Or if it's not saleable, I think the other side of that is, okay, well, what are we doing to make sure that when we can't work or we don't want to work anymore, we've got other assets that we can live off, and I think not all of that's always thought about sometimes. And usually, correct me if I'm wrong, people just get to a point they say, I just need to get out of the business, which is not really the most opportune time if they hit that point.
Correct. That's where succession in theory is at its worst, for the fact that you haven't planned enough to actually get it out there ready whilst the business is in its prime. Yes. To actually get the best value for money. And look, there's some people that, and I've seen instances where they've said, well, that business is my baby and I've really liked the way it's operated over the years. I'm not that fussed about getting best value for money, but I would just like someone that comes in that has the same care factor I've got.
Yes.
And They get influenced.
That's a real legacy aspect, isn't it? Because it's saying I want to know that continues on with what I've built, not I'm going to get top dollar for this and what happens after I'm gone, I don't care about. But that's a real legacy of I want this to basically outlive me in a lot of ways.
It's understanding the mindset of the person running the business and what they do expect from that succession and what they do see as the aspects of the succession that they really want to achieve. And like I say, some people just say, I've built that, I want that to keep going, and I'm happy to
and I'm sure there's
support and help and move it. And if that means that I don't get maximum dollar value, I'm not that fussed. I'd rather it
because
there's
more for me than just the money. It's the worth of,
and that's a big part. I think even in the game we're in, even though we're here to help people with financial decision making, there's always an element of emotion. There's always an element of the person. There's always an element of what really drives that person. And the almighty dollar doesn't control everybody. No. So there is a need to make sure that
it's relationship, isn't it?
Correct.
Go back to
understanding.
Yep.
Yeah, and it is getting the people part of it right.
Yes.
And we're public accountants, so that means we're open to the public, and that means there's people going to deal with us. So that's where we need to have that. I'll call the word sympathy, whether that's the right word or not, but there's sympathy for what that person actually really wants to get out of this.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a legacy.
And I think that's one of the things that I think is important is making sure both parties, the one who's leaving the business and the one taking over the business, both have a really good understanding of what that handover looks like, because there can be a bit of miscommunication sometimes in that handover piece, can't there, where I only thought you were going to show me these. I didn't realise you wanted to be here for another 2 years, showing up each day, or I thought I was going to get more support where you just are happy to just disappear. And so getting everyone on the same page, I think, is a big part of it. And I think that's where that's not just an accountant's role, is it? That's where we've got to get solicitors or people involved as well, just so everyone's on the same page. Even finance, everyone's on that same page around how is all of the mechanics around this going to work, not just who unlocks the door tomorrow and deals with whatever comes through.
Yeah, I agree. You need to. There's a financial aspect of it. There's a sale agreement, but then there's just the underlying thoughts of what happens next.
Yep.
And that we both agree on that. It might very well be that. Thanks, Chris. I've loved every word. You can just leave the room now. That's fine.
Yep.
It's my baby. I'll move from there. That's how most of them happen. But you need to make sure that we're all fully aware of that. And
it's probably nearly easier, correct me if I'm wrong, when it's for those scenarios, when it's not family members.
True.
It's a lot harder when, just as an example, dad hands over to son or dad hands over to daughter, and dad continues to, from out of his love and affection, continues to come back and wanting to help out, and that at some point that help becomes a little bit of a hindrance and things like that. And it's, like I think of the family farm as well too. I know my grandfather, when he was still around, he was still in his 80s out doing bits and pieces and helping out because he just felt that was part of his role and his duty. You never stop being a farmer, and it's a bit the same for other business owners as well too. I think sometimes.
Farm succession is a huge issue.
Yep.
And it often there's differences in siblings' positions in the world, and some are farmers and some aren't farmers, and trying to juggle the balls to get that right can be very difficult.
Yep. Same for family businesses though too.
Absolutely.
Not everyone's in the family business. Not everyone cares about plumbing or whatever the family business might be, but they all feel like, well, this is inheritance getting passed along. Am I missing out because I
think a classic is with business farms, etc. They don't operate without somebody. They don't make money without somebody operating them.
Yes.
And there's got to be the appropriate reward for those people that are actually getting up every day to make sure the doors are open and that the customers are still coming in.
Yep.
Or the crop is still growing and the sheep are still getting tended to.
Yep.
They're very important aspects to what should happen with succession. And family succession is a very different beast than
Yes.
just the normal succession. But again, I think if everyone has to, take the emotional cap off when they're doing that and think it through for the people that are continuing with the business and the ones that may have no interest in the business at all.
But I think too,
And the biggest part of it is discussion and talk, understanding
yes,
what our intentions, whatever the older generation's intentions are, and that gets passed down. And remembering that sometimes, this is horrible, but people don't die in turn. In other words, sometimes it's the succession that's planned actually happens in a totally different way because of unfortunate accident or illness that changes that expectation of how things are going to move on, depending on the younger people passing away sooner than the older people.
And I think that was what I was going to say. One of the crucial things is start having those discussions earlier than you think. Don't wait, and also too, don't assume, because not everyone wants to do what you think they're going to do. Like
That's right.
I've got young kids and I have ideas on what they could do, but I certainly wouldn't want to put in stone that that's what they do. And so you sort of go, I've got to be open to the idea that no one might want this business. None of my kids might want to be involved in running this day to day or coming in and doing that day to day. They all might want to go, you know what, I'm moving to another country or I'm moving to the city or whatever. And so I think it's being open to the fact that everyone's going to have different ways, but you've got to start those discussions and get everyone involved that's impacted by it, I think.
Yep. It is the biggest thing. It is having the discussions and keeping them open and putting numbers in front of people as well to understand. And so everyone might get a bit shocked sometimes by what the numbers actually are.
Yes.
So that they do get an understanding of how it should look.
Yep.
And discussion is key. And it should, a well-founded discussion may need a mediator in a nice way, not someone to sort everything out.
Facilitator.
But certainly facilitator is a better word.
Yep.
Yeah, the facilitator that's actually in there just says, well, this is what it looks like and this is how, this is the intentions.
Yep.
Let's have a chat about it.
Yep. And I know we've helped with some of those discussions before, haven't we? We've sort of helped explain things as well too, because structures aren't always simple, and so if someone hasn't dealt with structures much before, they can come along, well, what's all of this? And a company just means that if there's a company involved or there's a trust, well, that's a lot of money. Well, no, there's plenty of trusts out there that don't necessarily have a lot of money in them. So it's being able to understand all of those elements and aspects of it, not just what am I doing and how do I do it?
Just sneaking over the numbers for a minute, also the thing called contingent tax liabilities need to be understood as well.
Yes.
That there is some liabilities that might sit there sleeping that somebody's going to have to take care of at some point in time.
Yep.
Yeah, needs to be thought about because
Yes.
someone's like, oh, that's worth $1 million. I know. But there's 300,000 of that's going to go to building roads.
Sorry. Yep. Sorry. Yep.
At some point in time.
Yes.
So it's not really $1 million, and that's how you need to think your way through those kind of things.
And just being able to understand all of those bits and pieces, I think is crucial, because it gives everyone then a more realistic view of what this actually looks like.
Very true.
And it's not, I'm not inheriting this. I'm actually just inheriting this plus a lot of hard work and debt and other things as well that might be involved in that. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that brings up a good point. The fact that you might have to put your house up against that overdraft that sits in the business that's the family business versus someone else who doesn't have to do that.
And just gets to take some money and
correct,
and disappear.
or think, oh no, they're just in there running the business and they get all the profits and all that kind of stuff. But
there's
actually
no risk.
Quite inherent risk in that.
Yes.
By turning up to your job every day, you don't have. So you need to think those things through, as well as insurance. In other words, personal insurance, just to make sure that if the worst happens along the track, which we sort of spoke about earlier, that the business / family as well are all covered appropriately, just in case for some reason we actually can't open the doors tomorrow.
Yep. And I think insurance is sometimes overlooked or sometimes thought we'll deal with that later, or that's an expense we don't need right now. But it's usually also the most valuable thing to come along when you need it. And if it's not there when you if you don't have it set up prior, you can't go and get insurance after the fact. And so thinking through some of those things, especially if a younger person's coming in to take over a business, mum and dad might actually be set up in a position where they don't need insurance, but the younger person who comes along goes, well, if all this goes south, I'm left with holding the bag, and I've got this to worry about, and I've still got a mortgage on the house, or I've got something else.
That's right.
Those are the things that if you're not planning for those contingencies or those issues, I see that you're setting yourself up for failure from the word go.
It's usually, I mean, sitting down with a couple of young guys and they've sort of got a business and it's sort of going ahead in leaps and bounds quicker than they thought, and it's now got a bit of value about it. And the initial thing, you need some insurance. They're going, but we're young and fit and whatever, but you still need that insurance. And
the bus doesn't care if you're young and fit. Yep.
And you do want other people to join you on the crusade. So everyone needs to protect each other here.
Yes.
And that's what it's designed for.
And I think too, that's one of the things to think about with a multiple partner business. Like if it's just you on your own, yes, you've got to cover yourself. But if you're got your hand to the plough with someone else and they pass away for whatever reason, have you got coverage in place for them? Because there might be a period of time where you take a huge hit, or there might be an element of the business that you either need to pick up and start running that you don't know about, or bring someone in. And so being able to make sure you plan around those contingencies. And it's never fun talking about these things. No. That's the hard bit. I mean, as our brain doesn't want to think about death or that, but I think if we're not thinking about, and it's not talking about it all the time, but at least just knowing if that happens, I've got it covered.
That's right. And that's element of succession, isn't it? Understanding the risk and mitigating the risk wherever you can. You can't mitigate all risk, but you can certainly
there's probably a few big ones that you can cover off
some of them
pretty easy. Yep. No, that's excellent. Chris, great discussion today. Love talking about succession, business, where we're going and those kind of things. If there was one take-home message for any business who's out there at the moment thinking about maybe I hadn't thought about this, maybe I need to start thinking about succession, what's one thing that they should do as a starting point?
Yeah, I think that actually taking a step back and saying what is my business worth, and the second part of that is to say, well, how would I like it to move to the next generation? I'm not saying necessarily family, but the next person that's going to operate the business. Just so that there is that thought around, as I said sort of at the start, how do I plan to exit?
Yes.
And what's the smoothest, best way for me to do that?
Yep.
And also reward the effort that I put in over a fair period of time. And the sooner you sort of have that in mind, the sooner you can start to ensure your business is operating to that mantra.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's perfect. And I think so often business owners are the busiest and they don't actually ever take that time to sit down and say, well, what do I want out of this? Or am I getting what I want out of this?
Correct.
And I heard a great line the other day, which a lady said, she was talking about how she had a friend say, why do you work so hard? And she goes, I work so hard so at some point in the future I don't have to work as hard. And she said, I stopped because I'd made the same comment 20 years earlier and I'm still working hard. And so it made her go back and really look at everything she was doing. But I think that's one of the things, is taking that step back and saying, what do I actually have here and what do I want here?
Look, I have a lot of respect for anyone that runs their business, because there is so many aspects to it that you don't understand until you're in that seat.
Yep.
And there's aspects to it, even though you think you run your business and you listen to what they've got to say, and it's like, oh, that's a little different. I didn't understand. I didn't think that might be an issue, but it does come up that way. It's like a baby that never grows up, and what you want to do is you've got your baby, and you know that it's your lifestyle, and you want to keep the baby happy and healthy, and then hand that baby to someone else at some point in time. So how do I make sure that baby's as healthy and in the best condition it can be?
Yep. Perfect. Love that. That's a great analogy. And I think we'll finish there. Chris, thank you so much for today. Thank you for time. We'll include your details in the show notes. There's probably a lot of people that already know Chris who's listening anyway, but for anyone who might be interested in talking about business valuations or actually what they've got and what their business is actually worth, reach out to Chris. He's got a lot of experience in it, and I think it's a valuable discussion and a valuable thing to start doing in your business earlier than you think. Don't leave it until a year out. Always be planning ahead and always be thinking, where do I want to be? Because 5 years can go past very quickly, and you can actually change a whole lot in 5 years, I think, as well too. So
I think I go back to go and have some drinks with Trevor. You just got to be ready for the opportunity.
Yes.
So if the opportunity presents itself and you're never quite sure when it's going to come up, best laid plans don't always work. So if you're ready for it, you'll get the best from it.
Excellent. Thank you, Kris. Thank you, everyone, and we'll leave it there. Thank you.